Hello, my fellow comic book collectors. This is part 3 of my top 50 favorite comics in my collection. These comics are not necessarily my truly top favorite because there was a previous top 50 list that had many of my favorite comics on it. But this is my top favorite comics that weren't on my previous list, if that makes any sense at all. But these are great comics that I truly love, and I figured I should show you them. And this is my numbers 30 to 21 on my list. So I recommend you check out the 2 previous videos where I show my top 50 to 40, like top 50 to 40, and then top 40 to 31. So those are the previous 2 videos. I'll link them in the description, and I'll also link to my original top 50 list, which is my most valuable comics. These are my most favorite comics. So with all that being said, let's get into the comics because there's a lot of cool comics to show. So this is number 31, or I should say number 30 on my list. This is New Mutants 98, the first appearance of Deadpool. And it's sometimes written as being her first appearance, Domino's first appearance, which is another character I like. But supposedly in this version, she isn't actually Domino's. She's actually Mystique. So this is Mystique on the cover, not Domino. Because Mystique was kind of pretending to be Domino, which is kind of weird, but supposedly that's what it was. But it actually writes, what does it say? So first appearance of Deadpool, Guinean, and later revealed to be Copycat. Sorry, Copycat, not Mystique. I was thinking Mystique. And second appearance of Star Shadow, a Shatterstar cameo. Sorry. So that's what's kind of special about this book. I just like Deadpool. I think he's a great character. And this is his first appearance. This is usually, I imagine this is on many people's top 50 lists because it is just a great comic. And probably the reasons that other people love this comic are the same reasons I love this comic. Deadpool is just a cool character. I like the fact that he's kind of like, foul-mouthed, kind of, very silly, over-the-top kind of guy. And he's just, kind of invincible. There's just so many great things about Deadpool. So for all those reasons, that's why he's on my top list, because just to get his first appearance, really cool. This was one of the earliest major keys that I got too, so it's special for me for that reason too. I got this like many years ago, and then I got it finally slabbed, and it didn't do so well when it got slabbed, but yeah, it was a great comic. Okay, so that's that one. Next on my list is another major character. I'm going to take it out of the bag. This one is comic that I got that presents amazingly well. It's a beautiful comic. It is incomplete. It's missing the centerfold, which is kind of sad, but it's, to me, a really great comic regardless. I'm actually it's one of those ones that always irks me that it is a green label, but it is one of my favorite comics. I really liked Groot as a character, and this is his first appearance in Tales to Astonish number 13. It's just a really great comic. Too bad that it's not complete. If it was complete, it'd be a very expensive book. Even incomplete, it's a pretty pricey book. But it's just a really great one. I really like these sort of Silver Age, like what happened was a lot of these Silver Age books like Tales to Astonish, what's it called? Amazing Fantasy, Tales of Suspense. They all started out with this kind of monster-like theme where they were, originally monster stories, and then later they became like Ant-Man or Iron Man or Spider-Man. Like, they came out of monster books. So this is kind of a cool character that kind of survived that transition between the monsters and the superheroes. So Groot is just one of those cool characters. I really liked Guardians of the Galaxy. I thought he was a really great character. And to have his first appearance and in this really old book from 1960 is really cool. So yeah, I'm a big fan of Groot, so that's why I have it on my list. The next one on my list is one that is a pretty major comic that I actually owned before, and because of my wife, I sold. I actually have. So let's take this out. Sandman #1. Now, I actually had the complete series of Sandman. I mentioned it in other videos because it's something that I think about all the time. That I owned a complete collection of Sandman, all in high grade. They weren't encapsulated or anything. They were just raw copies, but they were all high grade. And I had the whole collection, met my wife. I had to move because of her. And so she was like, "Oh, get rid of those junky comics," you know. so I sold the whole collection for like $600. Complete collection, high grade. It was kind of sad to do that at the time, and I always missed having my Sandman collection. Years later now, I ended up picking up just a few of the key issues, like this #8, a few of the other key issues. So yeah, this is definitely one that I was happy to reintroduce to my collection, Sandman #1. And it's just a really great comic. Really, Neil Gaiman is kind of one of those writers that's considered one of the, best of all time. And, he's very creative, very interesting ideas in his stories. And he really changed comic history with this comic. He really reintroduced more complex, more dynamic stories to comics all in general. Like after him, you got Alan Moore and all these other ones that started coming into the comic space because they saw the opportunity to put in some really, really great stories with that are just bizarre, not the standard superhero stuff. So it was kind of revolutionary, this book. So I'm a big fan of Sandman, and I heard that they're going to make a series. So this book is getting hot right now, which is kind of annoying in a way because I would have liked to have gotten the whole complete series again, but it's getting a bit pricey. But yeah, so this is Sandman #1. Next on my list is another big book. And this is Fantastic Four #48. Again, another green label. So I don't know what it is with these numbers, but it's all green. It's a lot of green labels. This one is missing its Marvel stamp, which is kind of annoying, but it is. When I got this, I was so keen, though. I was so happy to get it because it is a major, in my mind, a blue chip comic because it's the first Silver Surfer, first Galactus and cameo, supposedly. And it's just a really great comic. It says first appearance of Silver Surfer and Galactus cameo for last page. But it is one of those comics that I don't know. It has that sort of iconic look to it. It is Silver Surfer's first appearance, not his first cover appearance, which is behind me, like right there. So, one sec. Can you see it? Right. I'm going to try to point to it. Right? No, that way. That one, right there. So, but this is, his first appearance. It's a major character, kind of cool character that I always wondered about when I was younger. Like I heard my brother would talk about Silver Surfer and I'd be like, what? A superhero on a surfboard? That sounds so weird. This is when I was really young. So I thought, wow, I gotta learn more about that character. And when I learned more about him, I just really, really liked Silver Surfer. And I actually watched the animated series that they had about Silver Surfer. And it was a really great series. I recommend you watch it. It's an old cartoon series of Silver Surfer. It's really well done. Gives his origin and everything. So, I was a big fan of Silver Surfer. To get his first appearance, very exciting for me. So this is Silver Surfer's first appearance in Fantastic Four #48. I'm a big Fantastic Four fan, so I have a lot of Fantastic Four. And next one was this one. So this is the Crow #1. My copy's not the greatest. It's like a 3.5. So, but you know, it is Crow #1, and it's a really rare book. And I like the history, not necessarily, the book is interesting itself, but the history around the movie. A lot of the comics that I collect are related to movies. So when the Sandman movie came out, not Sandman, the Crow movie came out, there was a huge controversy about it because the main actor, Brandon Lee, died in the filming of the movie. And they actually had to add extra footage, you know, without him, you know, create footage around him to basically make up for the fact that he had died during the movie. There's actually a scene in the movie, and I don't think they actually removed it, where he dies. They're shooting a whole bunch of bullets at him, and you know the Crow character is supposed to be immune to death because his life is sort of in this crow. And they're shooting a whole bunch of bullets at him, and one of the bullets was actually real, and it killed him. It was supposed to be blanks, but it was a real bullet. So in the movie, he actually dies. And it was a tragic event. There's sort of a curse around the Bruce Lee family, and you know, some people think, you know, there's a whole big conspiracy theory about it, and it's that history that really intrigues me. I love history behind things. So I was always fascinated by the Crow as a character. I was fascinated by the comic. I actually liked the story. The movie was okay, but I liked the story, the whole idea of the Crow. So for that reason, that's why this is on my list as one of my top favorite comics of all time. So yeah, so a really great comic to have, and even though it isn't a low grade. So that's the Crow. The next one is another Silver Surfer one, Silver Surfer #4. And this one is purely about cover. It's not about the story. The story is actually supposedly pretty good. I haven't read the story. I only got it because I liked the cover. It is just one of those iconic covers that you have to say, wow, that is a great cover. Like, you know, it's just, you know, it's got that Thor, like, just ready to do his Thor action. You got the rainbow bridge underneath him. You got Silver Surfer swooping in to go against Thor. It's just a really great comic. Just a really beautiful comic. And this one really presents well. It's not a high grade, actually. It's got a bit of issues with its spine, but for the most part, it's just a really great book. Like, just a really iconic cover. And that's the reason I love it. It's on my list for that, purely because of the cover. I think the cover's great. So that's it. That's not much more to say than that. Another one, this is pure nostalgia. This is Scooby-Doo #1. And the only reason it's on the list is I was a big Scooby-Doo fan. And I grew up watching Scooby-Doo cartoons. You know, my TV was my babysitter. So a lot of the time I'd watch Scooby-Doo, and it would be the same show every time. It's like, oh, if it wasn't for you meddling kids, you know, every time. And, you know, it would always be some guy that they knew all along, and they would remove the mask from the monster, and it would always be that, you know, that guy, you know. And, you know, they had always had the glowing paint or something like that to make it a ghost. And it was awesome. It was like such a great series. So silly, so funny. And I enjoyed it. I bought this book purely for that nostalgic reason, that I loved Scooby-Doo when I was a kid. My children actually, you know, Scooby-Doo was recreated recently, and they had multiple series, and they also grew up loving Scooby-Doo. We got, you know, when you still bought movies, nowadays you just watch things on Netflix, but we bought all the DVDs of Scooby-Doo shows because they liked it so much. So big fan of Scooby-Doo. This is his first first appearance of the whole gang in Scooby-Doo #1. This is from 1970, and it's a really hard comic to find, actually. Even though it's a low grade, it's just such a hard comic to find in any grade, because the Gold Keys were pretty beaten up for the most part. People didn't treat them very well, especially the cartoon series ones. They didn't really treat that well, so they would be generally beaten up, and it's really hard to find this in any grade. So especially a high grade. So if you can find this in a high grade, definitely pick it up, because it is one that is hard to find in a high grade. So this is my Scooby-Doo, Scooby-Doo #1. And now we got the last 3 on the list of this sort of top 10. My numbers 30 to 21. And another character that I really like, and from a series that I really liked. I was a big fan of the Batman Adventure series, and this is the first appearance of Harley Quinn. Batman Adventures #12. And it's just a really great comic. It was one of the ones that I picked up when I was still buying comics casually from the, from like from during the 2000s. I was still buying comics casually, a few comics every so often. And this was one that I picked up because I really liked the character. I just had to have this character. I paid like $100 for it at the time, so or maybe even less. So yeah, it was a really great character for me. I really liked the Harley Quinn from the series. I'm not sure if I like the more recent versions of Harley Quinn, where they kind of play up her craziness in a non-lovable way. In the animated series, I found that she was more lovable. She was kind of goofy, but there was something lovable about her, that there was a certain charm to her, and I kind of liked that. I really liked the Batman Adventure series. Also, the art was Bruce Timm, who's an artist I really like. Just a really great series. It's worthy of, if you haven't watched it, go back and check it out, because it's a really great series, one that definitely should be watched. And so yeah, so this was Harley Quinn's first appearance in Batman Adventures #12. Okay, now we're down to the last 2, and they're kind of in a similar genre. First one is Star Trek. I'm a big Trekkie. I'm a bit of a geek, thus the name Comic Collector Geek. I'm a true geek. So this is that one that's a kind of a geeky one. I was a big Star Trek fan. The original series with Spock and Captain Kirk and Sulu, I really liked that series. I'd watch them every time that they would come out. Like, they would come out on on the weekends. I'd watch it every weekend, and I watched every episode maybe a dozen times. I was a big fan. So my local comic book shop, this is going back like 20 years now, over 20 years, had this comic. Actually, this is going back more like almost over 30 years. So they had this comic. They wanted some crazy price for it too. And still, I was like, oh, I don't really have the money. But even though it was really expensive, which if you look at it, it is just a beaten up copy. It does not, even now, this shouldn't be an expensive copy because it is beaten up. It's maybe a 1.5, maybe a 1. I don't know. It's pretty low grade. And I bought it because I really liked Star Trek, and it was like $50. I paid too much. I way overpaid. My comic book guy back then, he was such a shady guy. he would rip you off so much. But I did love this comic so much that I picked it up regardless of the fact that it was way overpriced. So now I have the complete series of Star Trek Gold Key, believe it or not. So I kept this one in my collection, even though it is just really beaten up, even though was a total overpay. To me, it has that special sentimental value that it's kind of symbolic of me overpaying for a comic, but also getting a comic that I really like. It is an awesome comic. It's awesome for many reasons, though. It's awesome for the fact that it has the photos of the original cast, and it's just a really great comic. I'm a big Star Trek fan, so can't this for me is very exciting. This is like a grail to me, so it's a pretty great comic. So yeah, and the last one, kind of similar, and it's like one of those things where it's Star Trek, Star Wars. Well, this is Star Wars #1. So this is a comic I never thought I would actually own, because I thought, wow, that's such a hard comic to get, and it's just to get Star Wars #1 with the first appearance of Luke, Leia, Han Solo. Actually, Han Solo doesn't make his appearance in this. He makes his appearance in #2, but Obi-Wan, Darth Vader, all the major characters at least. It was just a really great comic to get. And actually, I have multiple copies of this because I liked it so much. But the other ones are second prints. So this one is the first print. It's Star Wars #1 from 1977. And it's just a really great comic. So, it basically tells the story from the first movie, The New Hope. And it's, I remember, so this is giving you a sense of how old I am. I remember my parents wouldn't let me go see the movie. My brother was allowed to go because he's 3 years older than me, but I was not allowed to go. So I was so sad. I cried. I actually cried myself to sleep that night because I wasn't allowed to go to see Star Wars, the first movie. I was, so keen to go, but my parents said, "Oh, you're too young." They wouldn't let me go. So I was so sad. And so now, years later, to get this book is kind of extra special because it's like me getting that little piece of my childhood history. So yeah, so this is a very special book for me. Star Wars #1 from Marvel series from 1977. Okay, so that's it. That was my list of part 3 of my favorite comics. I hope you enjoyed this series so far. And the books are going to get bigger and bigger and more sentimental to me as I progress. So there's like some more cooler comics coming up. So I recommend you stay tuned and subscribe to this channel so you can catch those updates. And remember to click the bell because that way you get notified when I do post. I post every day at 11:45 Eastern, so you can always check out new stuff. I do a lot of unboxing videos. I do a lot of cool content. I talk about controversial comics. I talk about a whole bunch of cool things on my channel. So definitely subscribe. Definitely like this video because it helps me. And remember to comment. I'd love to get the feedback from the people watching. And I hope you enjoy these videos. Thanks for watching. Bye.